A mother's desperate attempt to find her son with a timeline that raises more questions than answers. Today I'm going to be asking for your help yet again in another missing persons case. And I honestly believe that together we can apply just enough pressure on those with information to talk. I'll also catch you up on the Nashville bombing, but before that, we gotta go all the way to Canada. So pack your passports, cadavers. This is the hard truth. Corey Westcott went missing during the wee hours of September 1st, and he has not been heard from since. Born in Grand Falls, New Brunswick, Corey Westcott was always known to be a playful, loving kid with a big heart. A very selfless person, he was always there to help a friend in need. These traits would also follow Corey all the way into adulthood as well. Fast forward to 2020, and Corey is said to still be that caring, loving person, just much bigger now. Standing at 5'10 and weighing in at about 210, Corey could come off as intimidating to those who didn't know him. But to those who did, he was this funny, loving guy. In his younger years, Corey had moved from Grand Falls to Vancouver, fully adjusting to the city life. But as he got older, he realized that he wanted to slow down, so he decided to take another move, one that would give him a fresh start. Eager to slow down, Corey would pack his things and take the 8-hour trip to Nelson, British Columbia, where he would now call home. This would also be his last move. Aside from the fresh start, Corey's mother and family lived in Castlegar, British Columbia. Being that Nelson was only an hour from Castlegar, this meant Corey could now be closer to his family as well as his mother, who only wanted the best for Corey. I had the pleasure of speaking with Corey's mother, who introduced herself to me as Miss D. And what Miss D told me was at this point in Corey's life, he was attending church every Sunday, even attending church groups. He was also working hard to achieve a goal of his, which was to one day open up a facility catering to recovering addicts. Before Corey went missing, Miss D's time was consumed while helping her daughter move, so it had been a while since she last seen Corey. Regardless, she was proud of the way her son was able to persevere through the COVID pandemic, maintaining work by performing odd jobs around town and making ends meet. Corey's mom was comforted by the fact that Corey did have friends in the area he resided, friends that could possibly comfort him if he were to get lonely. But these friends also acted rather suspiciously when he suddenly went missing. Which brings us to Corey's friend, who we will call Z. Now, because there is an open investigation, I am unable to provide you with Z's identity. But I can tell you that Z is one of, if not the last person to see Corey before he disappeared. Corey's friend Z works from home, growing that devil's lettuce for the Canadian government. But Corey knew Z since 2008, and it would seem that they would reconnect when Corey made the move to Nelson. And that rekindle would ultimately make sense since Z lives in Bennington. Bennington, much like Nelson, sits alongside the Kootenay River, and Bennington is also 15 minutes away from Nelson, where Corey lived. If you use your maps to search the Bennington area, you can see that it is a very remote area, filled with plenty of mountains and glacial parks surrounded by tall trees. It was also extremely breathtaking, much like the area Corey now resided in Nelson, so it was quite the change for Corey since his move from Vancouver. But it would be in this small town of Bennington that Corey's truck would later be found, abandoned. The story of Corey's disappearance provided by Z is that Corey arrived at his house, stayed for a while, and then around 1 a.m. left, never to be seen again. But before we get into the details or inconsistencies, Corey's mother provided us with a timeline of Corey's activity leading up to his arrival at his friend's house.
So, speaking to the detective, the day prior to Corey's going missing, he had gone to the gym, he had gone shopping, he went and visited with a couple of friends who said that he was happy and healthy and normal. From there, he went and got sushi. He went to a gas station and got gas and 3 cans of coconut water and proceeded to the friend's house.
Corey's mother would also add that at some point her son did make a pit stop home to drop off the items he had acquired while shopping. She said that he would change into a brand new black shirt that he had just bought. He also left $550 on his counter. It seemed that he may have been in a rush because he also left some toiletries by the door before leaving. Regardless, after that busy but seemingly normal day, Corey would then head to his friend Z's house. And this is where the details would get a little hairy. So Z would say that Corey arrived roughly around 7 p.m. and then would later leave at 1 a.m. But there would be some unnamed parties that would suggest that there were more people present than just Corey and Z. For example, one anonymous attendant would say that they were there around 8:30 to witness the order and delivery of cocaine for Corey's friend Z. And that detail is not the only that stands out. For example, there are rumors that there were more people present, upwards to 5 possibly, including Z and Corey. Now, if more people were present and nothing out of the ordinary happened, then why would people not want to admit that they were there? Either way, this is all hearsay, and all we really have to go on is Z's word, whom, by the way, has yet to attend any gatherings or vigils for Corey. That aside, Z is sticking to his story, claiming that Corey left around 1 a.m. He said he got into his gray Toyota Tundra and drove off into the night. The next day, Corey's truck would be found abandoned next to the Kootenay River, with the keys still inside. But something else interesting happened that night. But to get into that, we have to travel an hour away to Castlegar, where Corey's mother had been living. It was around 2:37 a.m. on September 1st, when Corey's mother, Dee, had awoken out of a deep sleep to a dreadful feeling she could not explain. And unfortunately, whatever negative energy she had been feeling, she knew it was connected to her son, Corey. She couldn't explain it, call it mother's intuition, but she just knew something wasn't right. She began making attempts to contact her son, but every time she called Corey, he didn't answer. Eventually, she reached out to friends of Corey, friends who also said they had plans with Corey, but he had never shown. So a missing persons report was filed and the search began. And one of the first places authorities searched was the Kootenay River, not far from Z's house, and that's where they would find the abandoned gray Toyota Tundra belonging to Corey. Authorities searched the river thoroughly. They put divers in the Kootenay River. They brought out canines to track Corey's scent and even put eyes in the sky by having helicopters search for Corey Westcott. But it was all to no avail. Corey was nowhere to be found. But they had Corey's truck, just not Corey. However, authorities admittedly dropped the ball with this next move. It is true that Corey may not have had the most commendable of friends, but if you remember, Corey had been aspiring to open up a home for struggling addicts. Unfortunately, Corey's girlfriend was also a struggling addict, and she also dealt with Corey's friend Z, so she would not provide any information to authorities regarding Z, even though her boyfriend Corey was missing. But the ball was dropped when authorities decided to release Corey's truck to his girlfriend, who then drove it to Z's house to ask him a question. Now, Corey's mother, Dee, is being realistic since so much time has now passed, with no word from her son. But she is still hopeful in her son's return, no matter the condition. I'm sure knowing exactly what befell her son would be enough to instill closure, thus allowing Dee to properly grieve for her son, if he indeed is no longer with us. But even that information is unknown, as those close to Corey, the many he called friends or even girlfriend, are silent. Corey's true friends and family have held many town meetings and vigils in honor of Corey, but the friends involved have yet to attend. If you have any information regarding the whereabouts of Corey Westcott, please contact the Nelson Police Department at the number on screen now. That number, as well as the family's GoFundMe, will be in the description below. Congrats, it's 2021. You've officially made it through 2020. If you were disappointed that you didn't get to see fireworks this year, just be glad you didn't get to witness them in Nashville, Tennessee, because 63-year-old Anthony Quinn Warner went out with a bang. And I mean that quite literally, because this guy right here decided to park his Thor motor coach in the heart of honky tonk, rigged with explosives. This tragic event took place during the wee hours of Christmas morning, around 6:30 a.m., when the bustling strip was quiet. Anthony Quinn Warner parked his Chateau on 2nd Avenue North. He set a timer for 15 minutes while playing Petula Clark's 1964 hit, Downtown. For copyright purposes, I'll only play a short clip now, but while you're listening, just listen for the impending doom this song foreshadows.
Making you lonely, you can always go downtown.
That song, along with a verbal warning explaining that the vehicle was about to explode, was played just before it did so, true to Warner's word.
Stay clear of the vehicle. Stay clear of the vehicle. Do not approach the vehicle.
The footage I'm about to show you is terrifying, and it shows you just how vulnerable we truly are. The good news is no one was killed or seriously injured, that is aside from Warner, who initiated this suicide mission. Authorities believe that it was not Warner's intent to harm anyone during this act of domestic terrorism, and there are a few details provided that back up that claim. For starters, this took place during the wee hours, and there was a report of shots fired around the area of the parked RV. This was backed up by multiple witnesses who had claimed to also hear the warning shots. This ultimately brought police to the location, and once officers were on scene, a recording began playing, informing those who did not wish to die to evacuate the area, as the RV would explode in 15 minutes.
Evacuate now. If you can hear this message, evacuate now.
Officers began evacuating all occupants in any nearby establishments. They also set up a perimeter. In the footage you're about to see here, you can see what looks to be a man being told to turn around by an officer just before the RV explodes. It is unclear as to why Warner set out to cause such destruction, and even though he did not kill anyone, what he did was still terrible. So please, if you are someone with disturbing thoughts, please do the right thing and seek help before anything happens. Prior to the tragedy that took place on Christmas morning, Warner worked as an IT consultant for a number of companies in the Nashville area. He also had experience with electronics and alarms. Authorities had interviewed a few individuals that had known Warner prior to the incident, and it seems that this may have been a premeditated decision. This conclusion was met when authorities began analyzing some of the unusually strange behavior Anthony had been exhibiting. Anthony Warner, also known as Tony by those who knew him, began giving away all of his valuable possessions. This included his car to an ex-girlfriend and his house to an unnamed party, selling it for exactly $0. The only possession of his he would hold on to was his RV, which, well, you know what happened to that. Warner lived in Antioch, Tennessee. A neighbor of his by the name of Steve Schmalt would be interviewed, and Steve would say that Tony was a little odd, but mostly kept to himself. He said that Tony was low-key. When you search Warner's address on maps, you can clearly see the RV that was used in the bombing sitting in his yard. According to those who had been given items by Warner, when asked why, he would tell everyone one of two things. He would either say he was doing this because he had cancer, or because he was retiring. It is unclear if either are true, but one truth would prevail on Christmas morning, and that is Warner was involved in the bombing. They were able to identify Warner by finding his VIN number in the blast area that was linked to the camper. This is actually exactly how authorities were able to identify Timothy McVeigh in the Oklahoma City bombing. McVeigh was a domestic terrorist who back in '95 killed a total of 168 people, including 19 children. Fortunately, no one was killed during the Nashville bombing, that is aside from the perpetrator, which was Anthony Quinn Warner. His DNA was found in the blast area, and it was tested and was a match. Authorities have no reason to believe that Warner was not working alone. They do believe he was the mastermind and was the only one responsible for the Nashville bombing. If you or someone you know is having a mental crisis, there is a number on screen now. You can call and there are people standing by waiting to help. That is enough hard truth for today. Sadly, there will be more tomorrow. All sites and numbers shared on today's episode will be in the description below. Please be sure to share this to spread word about Corey. Let's work together and find those who are lost. Be good to another and stay safe. Until next time.